Let's have y'all come over to this side.
All the way over
All the
here.
way. All right.
Give her grace, she taught me sophomore English.
All right, everybody look right here. Thank you.
Next up, we have Courtney Knuckles.
Yeah.
Here she comes. Courtney's grant was for classroom calming kits. The classroom calming kits will allow us the opportunity to implement and reinforce a consistent self-regulation system for our students across all areas at Posman Elementary. These grant funds will purchase materials to create the reusable classroom kits, which hopefully will enable students to cope with their feelings, decrease classroom conflict, and increase coping skills. Congratulations, Courtney.
Chocolate helps too.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Our next grant recipient couldn't be here tonight. She also teaches a dance class, and Sonia Snow is at the middle school, and her grant was Feel the Beat. Go ahead and hold it, and we'll take a picture. Ms. Snow says, I have now established a dance program at TMS that gives all my students the opportunity to show what they have learned to the school and community. I will use these grant funds to purchase a portable sound system that can be heard through crowds, access a microphone, and can work when there's no access to electricity. This will not only benefit the dance program, but I would be happy to share it with the cheer program and administration for special events when something like this is needed. Congratulations to Ms. Snow. Vanessa Collier is next. I didn't see Vanessa. Come on. Yeah. We'll let Ms. Pierce accept on her behalf.
I didn't write it for her.
Her grant was titled Texas Reads One Book. The Read to Them organization puts together a program where all across the state of Texas, elementary students read one book together. Imagine it like a statewide book club. The campus provides a copy of a book to all students this year, and this year it's The Lemonade War. There is a set reading schedule. There are activities and trivia questions to engage families in the whole event. It's important that we encourage and inspire students to become lifelong learners and readers. This grant will benefit 300 students at Main Street Elementary. Up next is Matthew Hooks. Matthews was entitled Holiday Photo Lab. With the new photo lab at THS, the students in my photography class want to transform the room into more than just a photo booth for the holiday season. We want an extravaganza. We also plan to have a traveling photo booth that will visit all the TISD campuses. We will be purchasing 5 new cameras with this grant money. We also hope to have other photo sessions throughout the year as we are and be able to assist Mr. Crow in photographing district events as needed. Help is on the way.
All right. Thank you.
Congratulations. Up next is Clara Lopez. Clara, here she comes. Clara's grant is Bridging Worlds Through Words. The Latino Family Literacy Program is designed to foster family engagement in reading by involving the whole family in the reading process. With this grant, I wish to improve literacy skills and English vocabulary for students in grade 1 through 5 at Main Street Elementary, as well as their families. This program includes leveled books for the bilingual library that students and parents will be able to check out. It includes a curriculum to organize and conduct workshops for parents on effective reading strategies and vocabulary building. This is a 10-week course I plan to start in January, and the program includes training for 2 staff members as well as ongoing support.
Thank you.
presentation goes to Jean Barnett. Jean's grant is titled The Heart, A-R-T, of Students. As the high school grows and the usable wall space changes, it becomes more and more difficult to display the amazing artwork created by the students in the myriad of art classes. With these grant funds, I will be purchasing several sets of portable display panels, which will allow us to display and share artwork not only at the Spring Art Show, but many more times during the year. The panels will also allow for much easier display of student art during the normal school year, and for the art to be visible to a larger section of the faculty, staff, and visitors that don't normally find themselves in the art hallway. Y'all are kind of in a dungeon back here.
Even worse now.
Being able to display more artwork more often will help add to district goals that include increasing student engagement through well-rounded experiences by seeing quality work created by their peers, and increasing staff morale by showcasing the amazing creativity and hard work of the students. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All of these grant winners are getting a payday candy bar. Thank y'all so much.
Let me help you. Let me help you.
Right.
So thank y'all for coming. Thank y'all. So, just like
Right. Next on the agenda, our reports to the Board of Trustees. Item A, bond update.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, President Ortiz, Superintendent Garcia, board members. I'd like to start out with this overall summary page that we have prepared for you guys every month. Just to give you an overall update, we feel that the projects are all progressing within their contract schedule, and definitely within the budget that was approved by the voters back when the bond was passed. So as you can see on the left-hand column, we're about 52% complete with construction, just based on the overall construction schedules that we have in phase 2. And in phase 3, we're approximately 64% with all the projects we have in phase 3. So there's quite a few different campuses. There's only 2 campuses in phase 2, so that's MSD and high school. And we have 4 or 5 in phase 3. At Taylor High School right now, our biggest milestone that we passed last week was our reinspection from the Williamson County Health Department for the new culinary arts space. So we're really excited about that. The plan is to get students in there to start teaching classes immediately. We are making progress on the high roof. If you've noticed recently, the roof is, or the building is topped out. All the structure is done. Most of the exterior sheathing is complete. They're working on interior framing right now, rough end of MEP systems, and waterproofing. At Main Street Elementary, you guys have probably seen them out there doing earthwork next to the road. That's for the new bus loop installation. You've noticed the building start taking shape in the form of completing the waterproofing, and roofing work will begin next week. NEP rough end is continuing to advance on the inside of the building, and the bathroom renovation was recently delayed because of the interior restroom partitions not arriving on schedule. But the plan is to get that stuff in and get those bathrooms operational as quickly as possible. On the maintenance project, exterior scope, you might have seen some missing exterior walls if you looked recently. So those are all being removed and upgraded with new exterior wall assemblies. We'll give windows to some of the occupants of that building. That was an addition during construction. Some of the rooms, the offices we had did not have windows, so those will be getting added. Those are expected to be complete in mid-October, and then site work will follow after that. In phase 3, T.H. Johnson, as you know, the administrative area was completed around the start of school. But the interior core of the building, where special ed and all those other interior core functions, is in progress. That's scheduled for completion in mid-October. T.H. Johnson's contract date, though, is not until December, and the exterior canopies will follow behind, just because now that school has started, the contractor will have to coordinate those exterior canopies with the school calendar. So we're looking for long weekends, maybe the Thanksgiving holiday break, to start getting those foundations installed and getting those exterior canopies in. Work in the interior of the building, MEP rough-in, all that is making good progress. Taylor Middle School, they're completing the exterior framing of the addition and working on the courtyard drainage in that same area. MEP rough-in and interior framing are in progress, and exterior framing and sheathing are complete, and that pretty much wraps up the middle school. Over at Pausman, that project is the most complete. All the new air conditioning units have been installed. Commissioning is completed on those HVAC units, and really the main portion of work that is underway is to install some acoustical panels, really pretty minor in the overall big picture, and completing some of the gates on the exterior fence out there at Pausman.
If I may, and those are like all the old HVAC systems were removed.
So primarily the old rooftop units, that's correct, just replace in kind for the bulk of that project, which was, I think, $2.5 million overall just for the replacement of those HVAC units.
Yeah, I guess from my understanding from previously, there were some old ones left up there from before.
There's a few that were not at the end of their life. I think just a handful that remain. So they didn't require replacement, but the vast bulk of them have been replaced. They were older than the other new ones. All right, any other questions before we change?
And the largest crane in the world was quite a tourist attraction.
Oh, good.
So thanks
Good.
for that little prize.
I don't know, coming from the Samsung plant, I don't know that people have much
Over here today,
appreciation.
surely this is bigger.
Thank you. So this is the overall schedule for each of the projects. These dates and completions are from the contractor's most recent schedule. These are not the contract dates. So most of these, all of these are well in advance of their overall official contract completion date. I think some of the things we would discuss about, like if you notice looking at T.H. Johnson, it's showing completing in mid-October. And that's definitely true for the interior core area, but again, those canopies will sort of take us into fall a little further than that October 15th date. The same is true for the maintenance building because of the focus on getting schools open and getting everyone focused on making the spaces ready for the students this fall. We sort of pulled off of that work considering some of the changes in place and the existing conditions that were discovered during construction. So I think you'll see that first week of October date extend at least another 30 days before that work is complete. But everything else is progressing on schedule. Overall program summary, again, if you're familiar with this, so we are in column E down at the end. We're not projecting any savings or overrun right now. If you look at our overall expenditure, the totals along the bottom, you'll see that we've expended, or Taylor ISD has expended $26.3 million, and they have currently committed $68.9 million. So if you divide those by one another, you get around 38% complete with the overall bond program between what's committed and what's expended. Now, you'll look down column D at uncommitted, and you'll see some pretty big numbers there. Those are things like the land purchase still have a big sum of money isolated for that purchase. Design of the new elementary school still has not been contracted for yet. And we still have some of the CTE furniture and fixtures that have not been committed yet. So still looking very good overall with the overall program budget. So this is sort of the items. These next round of slides are really sort of parts and pieces of the overall bond project broken down into the individual campuses, and this general bond summary is just all the things that don't fit quite into the campuses. So you'll see administrative and impact costs. We have that $7 million allocated for land purchase, and design and consultant costs uncommitted. We have that for design of the new elementary school. All right, turning to Pausman. If you look at the bottom row there, the totals, we've expended $2.3 million of the $6.9 million that's currently committed, for a total of around 34%. These invoices approved to date do not factor in August, so that's a big reason why, even though Pausman is the most finished, we haven't entered the numbers for the payment of August yet, and contractor's amount. All right, T.H. Johnson, again, if you look at the bottom numbers, little over $2 million expended, 6.46 million committed, for a total of about 32% complete. Main Street, around 39% complete when you consider the 6.6 expended and 16.7 committed. And Taylor High School, around 41% complete, with 8.3 expended and a little over 20 million committed. The middle school, that number is around 26% complete. And of course, Legacy is still less than 5%, really with primarily just security upgrades planned in the bond package for Legacy. District operations, this last slide, around 22% complete. And then you see a couple pictures, one from Main Street. This is the stage that's on the opposite side of the new cafeteria, so behind that back wall is the cafeteria. And then the new culinary arts space, which just got its Williamson County Health permit last week, which should be seeing students here shortly. Any questions about the bond program? All right, thank you.
Just want to make a note to be sure that, I know we're still doing work, and I know there's students around. I just want to make sure that you guys let the crews know that security is important.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
if they're
sir.
going to be in and out of our building, they need to make sure they're checking in and checking out the proper way. They may think it's inconvenience to them, but I want it to be an inconvenience to them, or at least we want it to be an inconvenience to them.
We've made that clear, very clear from the start, and we've asked them to redouble their efforts. to make sure
And again,
that
I'm
doesn't
just
happen.
bringing that up again,
So
most recent events, and just,
I
I
agree.
appreciate you guys doing this.
No, and we have the commitment of Dry Molly. You know, a lot of we have renovations going on inside the buildings, and they need to redouble their efforts to make sure that everyone that needs a badge gets a badge and goes through the proper steps for security protocol.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you.
Right. Item B, Lindy, 313, Mo Casey.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Molly Hanley. I don't know if you remember me from last time, but I'm from O'Hanlon. I've got Kathy Mathias from O'Casey. We actually have a pretty big update since we were here last time, and I noticed, or you noticed, that there were two large structures being constructed in the middle of Samsung, so we went and did a little investigating, and it's actually prompting a change from what was sent to you Wednesday till today. So, the application, just as background, was originally approved back in 2022. And under the application as presented, they would start their limitation period in 2028. So when we went to go find out how much value was out there because of those two large things right in the middle of the Samsung plant, they said, no, we don't have any construction. I was like, well, are you sure there's something out there? The board saw it with their own eyes, and they're like, well, let's go find out. And then we heard from their tax consultant that sure enough, they are under construction and they would like to amend their agreement to move all of their dates earlier. So instead of that limitation beginning in 2028, the limitation would now begin in 2026. So this period through all of 2025 would be their qualifying time period where they have to invest that minimum amount to keep the agreement alive, which they seem to be doing rather quickly. And they've given us updated numbers. And I'll actually turn that over to Kathy because she's gonna go through those calculations and be able to answer those. But I'm sorry, sir.
No, real quick. Is there a reason why they neglected to tell us that they had stuff out there? Because like I said, I knew there was stuff out there. I knew there was stuff out there way before.
Right.
And it's just like,
It seems to be a communication issue within their group because even as early as July, when we were getting the reports from the company, their person who was doing the report said, no, there's nothing out there, there's nothing out there. And so we followed up and I said, I really need somebody to check. And they got their external tax consultant to call us back and they're like, no, there's stuff out there and we need to update everything. So their internal people were just unaware, I suppose, or the person that they assigned to it was unaware. But they should be on the ball now. And we want to go to the next one. Kathy will go through the changes, what this will do for the district because of the changes.
So in December of 22, when we had the final meeting, we estimated that the revenue protection payment, which is kind of part of the agreement, was 1.9 million, but now we estimate 1.4, and that's, tax rate compression. The values actually with the amendment didn't change. They kept the same values. They just shifted the years things were gonna start. And the difference was due because your tax rate compressed about 20% from 2022. And we kind of think it'll probably compress more, although this year it seems like compression wasn't that big like it had been, but still, y'all are growing. And then supplemental payment differences, we don't have any change in the total amount because it's fixed in the agreement what that would be. But with the amendment, in the left column is what December 22 was with the original application, showing it started in 28-29 for each year. Their tax savings was 10.18 million total at the bottom there. And in the first year of the limit, it was gonna be like 1.6 million. But with the amendment, they're moving everything up 2 years. And so you have less tax savings for the company of 1.3, a total of 8.2. So it's decreased the company's tax savings because your tax rate went down and but the values haven't changed any, they're just shifting when. So you can see so what does that do to your revenue protection? Again, you would have gotten in 28-29, we estimated originally a $1.9 million revenue protection payment. Supplemental payments are fixed in the agreement starting with 2026 at $276,600. That's a specific amount for 12 years, which is 3.3 million, and the total payments we estimated to be 5.2 million. Now with the amendment, moving things up and the tax rate compression, the limitation starts in 2026. The protection payment went down to 1.4 due to that tax rate compression. Values didn't change. Supplemental payments, we think they're gonna shift and start in 25-26, which is the first year of the qualifying time period, where before the qualifying time period started in 27. And then to get the same number of years, 12, you would go through Viable Presence 1, which is 2036-37. And that's because they overlapped qualifying time period 2 with the limitation start in this amendment, where the original agreement they didn't. They had like 2 pre-years and then limitation. Now they have a pre-year limitation and investment year and then the other years. So 1.4 million for the revenue
through revenue protection, which is just in 2 short years. And then supplemental payments should start next year, once we get the final agreement for this amendment. Total is still 3.3 million for supplemental, 1.4 for RPP, total of 4.5. So it's down, but again, that's all the compression factor. So next year, you won't have any revenue protection, so your tax rate's not gonna be relevant to the payment for next year. But 26, then the tax savings will probably be different. They may have different values by then, once they actually get billed and the appraisal district steps in. And your tax rate, official tax rate of 26. So we have a little time before we know exactly what the RPP will be, but we do know your supplemental payments, they're not gonna change. So what's the total? December, it was 1.9 million. With the amendment now in September, it's 1.4. For the RPP, the total supplement was 3.3 and it stays 3.3. And then total payments show 5.2 compared to 4.8. And that's kind of the Lindy update. Can I quickly go through the process? So what will happen is we receive the actual documents to request the amendment today on our way here. I would give them to the superintendent to acknowledge that they've been received by the district. It goes back to the controller's office. The controller will actually recertify that the project is still eligible, still meets all of their tests, and then we'll bring back a final agreement to the board. And then the board, you have the decision whether or not to approve the amendment. So tonight, we're not asking you to do anything, but we will ask the superintendent to formally acknowledge receipt, and she just does so with her signature. And that process is pretty short compared to the original. It's nothing like the original. If they weren't doing reporting right now, they could turn it around in about a week, but it just depends who over at the controller's office and gets it. But it's your October or November board meeting is when we would be back to present the final agreement.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Well, thank you. Have a great night.
Next, item C, budget update, Jim.
Good evening. Within your package, we have a document titled Budget versus Current Projections. On that document, it should look a little bit familiar. It is showing what we budgeted for the 24-25 budget in that first column. As you know, we originally, based on the demographic study, we had projected 3,050 students with an attendance rate of 93.5. That would be 2,774 ADA. Looking at the next column over, this column is going to show what the current status is of our position, our revenue position, as of 9/6. So on 9/6, our enrollment was 2,919. That day, our ADA was 2,722. So looking down to that column, looking at the revenue, what changes with the revenue with that decrease in enrollment is an adjustment in state revenue, about $525,000. I did include in that, we did have good news as far as our CCMR bonus. It was about $100,000 more than we expected, so that I did increase with that, considering the decrease in state revenue because of ADA. If you continue down that column, going all the way down to the expenditures, we've estimated through attrition that we have about $400,000 in cost savings for payroll. This number was, again, as of last week. We are proactively looking at all options as far as staffing, making sure that we're fully staffed. We don't want to, of course, limit any of our staffing needs, but we are mindfully using the staff that we have. The next item down is recapture. That because when we have less state revenue, we usually have less recapture, so that amount should have gone down a little bit. So all in all, the excess, instead of 1.6 deficit that was projected on our budget, it's currently about 1.8 million. Now, if we look in the last column, we are looking at our current budget as if we did not have the disaster pennies, and as if we did not have, we're not considering any Samsung funding. So with that, you'll see a little bit of the same changes in state revenue. We're down $500,000 for state revenue. On the expense side, if you flip over our recapture, that would have reduced our recapture to $364,000. So without Samsung and without the temporary disaster pennies that we have this year, we would be at about a $3 million deficit. Any questions about this sheet or any of the amounts there?
Item D, scorecard update with Zembeck.
All right, good evening. It's my pleasure to give you all an update on our strategic scorecard. So this is our balanced scorecard for the upcoming 4 years. We have priority 1, students, priority 2, staff, priority 3, stakeholders, and priority 4, stewardship. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time this evening just talking about priority 1, students, and going a little bit deeper into what those priorities are and how we anticipate to get there. Let's talk about the process, because this has been a long, in-depth process to get where we are today. So the design process includes, 1, an inclusive approach, making sure that a small population is not making the decisions that we are expecting the entire district to be able to follow through. So we had an inclusive approach, engaging several different stakeholder voices, such as district cabinet members, principals, directors. This work started at the end of last year and went all the way through the summer, and is still currently going today. Collaborative decision making, so allowing for collective input. Each of these groups, whenever we brought this work forward, all thought at the end of the meeting, okay, we're good. And then you bring it to the next set of people and you're like, okay, this is an amazing plan. What do you think? And it's amazing how much conversation you can have around word choice, or 1 word or 2 words. And you're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have this discussion again. And it turned out to be even a more beautiful collection of thoughts and strategic objectives that you just never thought of. So it was really a process in knowing and valuing many different voices, because there's always that other little perspective that you just didn't think of. This process also involves transparency, because we have talked about this ad nauseum and continue to play it out and say, what if, and what do you think, and do we believe, and can we get behind? There is absolutely no question about what we're trying to do and then how we're going to get there. Having all of the collaboration, the voices, the time to process, all creates better solutions. Because like I said, every vetting process that we took this through with a different group of people, it came out stronger and better at the end. And ultimately, it's going to have improved accountability, because everyone can speak to the why, where it came from, where it began, how we're going to get there, and how we're going to make sure that we track and hold each other accountable. It breeds collective accountability across the entire organization, because it's going to take all of us going the same direction, lockstep, to get there. So going into priority 1.1, increasing academic achievement. So we have these goals, which are great, but goals need strategic action steps. We have to be able to spell out very clearly how we're going to get there. So 1.1, the key strategic action steps that we have collectively identified and approved is 1.1, systematically sustain a guaranteed viable curriculum using high quality instructional materials. I know I've talked several times to everyone about the curriculum work that we've done over the summer. We know that our teachers want to do the best and provide that world-class education for all students, but we have to make sure that they have the right materials, because you can take materials that you can teach beautifully, but if it's not to the level, depth, and rigor of the grade level, you can nail it, but it still won't give you the academic results that you're looking for. So one, we had to make sure that we are preparing and providing the best rigorous material for our staff. 1.1b is systematically monitor alignment between written, taught, and assessed curriculum. So we gave them the what, but we have to make sure that we bridge theory and practice. So we have these materials, we say they're the best, we've created the plans, but sometimes there's a disconnect if you don't make sure that it's actually being executed in the way that you envisioned, because that very often is a gap that can completely undermine a system. So it's making sure that we have the high quality materials, but then also making sure that our staff knows how to execute, and that we can also see in real time, okay, do we need to tweak something? Do we need to provide more PD? Do we need to provide more support? So it's just making sure that the plan makes it all the way down to students in the way that we thought. 1.1c, develop and systematically sustain PLC protocols. So PLC stands for Professional Learning Community. So this is that dedicated time that our staff has to plan, to analyze student data, to make instructional adjustments based on the data that they have. This is that sacred time that they can use the collective IQ rather than it's just me by myself and I hope I land it and I don't have a thought partner. So making sure that those protocols and that time together is supported, maintained, and protected. And then 1.1, develop and systematically sustain a multi-tiered system of support. In short, we call that MTSS. So this is, we have our tier 1, this is what we do for all students. What happens if a student needs more or less in something specialized? How do we know when that is? How do we track if what we're doing is working? What are we going to do differently? That it's not just more of the same, but it's specialized to fill in any achievement gaps and move forward. MTSS can eventually also be that accelerated instruction. I have that student that is high achieving, that's in class doing everything that they need to do, but are we using every brain cell every day? And what does that look like? And how do we make sure that we know how to support those students as well? So this is just making sure that we have those protocols in place so that rather than having to create something, teachers know where to go to get the information and then feel supported. So these are the key action steps that we are committed to creating, developing, monitoring, and executing to hit the goal of increasing academic achievement. So I just said a lot, so I'm going to pause because you might have some questions about something specific.
I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment because you mentioned high quality instructional materials. So at the conference I was at this past week, they had a Thomas Talks or Thomas Talks for students. And a young man came up and he was talking about student voices. And he was a special ed student. He says, there are times where the teachers don't think that I am capable of doing more, so they limit me. So my voice is, I want that high quality instructional materials. We can do it if you just help us. We can do it. We're not afraid. And so that was that. I was like, okay, this is in there. But anyway, I just wanted to make a comment because you had it on here.
No, I love that. One of the things that I often talk with staffs about is specifically to what you just said. So sometimes as educators, we do this so often that sometimes we can bring a lens of understanding of the range of a student's capability. And sometimes it's easy to do that in elementary too because they're not so outspoken about what they can do. And I would always tell my staff, you might have a feeling that this child can't do it, but let them prove that to you rather than you assume that they can't. So always, our job is to always provide the opportunity. It's their job to let us know where their limit is rather than it being opposite. So it speaks directly to what you just said. So we have these key strategic actions. Everyone should have a copy of this in your folder if you wouldn't mind pointing out, because there's just a lot of words. So we obviously know where we want to go, but we can't go from 0 to 100 overnight. So we have to start somewhere. And every time you begin, especially if you're trying to make large systematic change, you need to have a rubric. Because you know where you want to be, you know where you're at, and you need to know where you're at along the process to make sure that you're continuously moving forward. So this is an example of a rubric that we use and will continue to use because our key strategic actions, if you notice, a lot of them used words like develop or create. Because we're in that beginning stage of, okay, what have we done? What do we know best practices are? Okay, let's get it written down. So we know that that's not where we're going to be in a few years, but that's where we're at right now. So we take a look at this scale. So stage 1 is reacting to problems. Kind of means you don't know how things have been going on, but you're going to start gathering the arrows. All the arrows are in different directions. Some are in the cornfield, some are in, around the corner. And so first you have to go figure out where all of them are. And then you bring it all together and you say, okay, now we're going to start realigning them. But first you have to know where all the pieces are. So the first one is just reacting to problems, figuring out what you have. Stage 2 is early systematic approaches. So this is where you start to kind of create that mission and vision. You start to have that collective understanding of common language. You start to bring alignment. This is where the organization begins to carry out repeatable processes, meaning that before it may have felt chaotic or the knowledge was specific to the person rather than the institution. And so now we start pulling all of that down and putting it in repeatable written processes. Once you have it written down and you can start seeing a system, you start moving into stage 3, aligned approaches. So this is where not only do you know the mission and vision of the organization, you know what the system is, you know that you can repeat it. Now you start to have cycles of improvement. So you start to create the system, see the system, evaluate the system, and you start to kind of see that flywheel effect, and you start to see momentum going. This is also in stage 3 in the middle. You'll notice it says learnings are shared. So we have the system, now we start to build that institutional knowledge. It no longer lives with one individual. Now we have something that belongs to the system and the organization that will start to leave a legacy. This is when we start getting into legacy work. This is not just day-to-day tasks, but we are building something that regardless of who are in these seats, the organization doesn't skip a beat. And then lastly, stage 4, integrated approaches. This is where multiple cycles of improvement have been accomplished, and this is where the momentum is going so great that all you do are small tweaks. You just watch and see how can we get 1% better, 1% better, 1% better. And this is where you start to be able to see trends over time, and this is where you start becoming top performers in your organizations and other school districts. So each of the strategic actions are going to naturally fall all over this continuum, just depending on where we're at. Some systems we have already in place and we're tweaking. Some systems we're having to build from scratch. But as long as we have a calibrated rubric to let us know where we're at, then we will have a good understanding as to where and why we are where we are and be able to create those next steps. Question? Okay. So this is just a visual I love a very simple visual of a complicated process. So all these words are really encompassed in this systems thinking and alignment visual. So we're moving from random acts of improvement, slowly getting those arrows going in the same direction. And then finally, when we're all going in the same place, we're aligned for impact. And that is where we're at for priority 1.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Baxter. All right, item E, teacher incentive allotment update. That's the
All right, good evening. I just wanted to give everyone just a brief update of where we are in our process for the teacher incentive allotment, which supports priority 2.2 and ensuring that we have strategic compensation and benefits for our staff. And so in the chart you can see where it falls under priority 2. And it really could probably impact 2.1 as well. With teacher morale if they are designated, or if you go the other way if they're not designated. So we're going to stick with 2.2. So if we could go on to the next slide. What is the teacher incentive allotment? And just in a brief nutshell, the teacher incentive allotment is a fund of money that is provided to us by the state based on a TIA plan, which we've already discussed before, that we submitted to be approved. So our plan has been approved, and the plan will, once it's all said and done, because we're in the data capture year this year, we finished our data capture year this last year, and we're moving on, and we'll look at that timeline in just a minute. But based on this system, teachers can be recognized exemplary or considered a master teacher and receive additional funds at the end of the school year in August. And so our plan is set up for, we have 60% of our plan that is based on student growth, and 40% of our plan that's based on their T-test scores, domains 2 and 3. So if we go on to the timeline. The timeline, and this was the whole timeline from start to finish. So where we currently are is we are between, well, actually it's like September 2024, and we are in the process of identifying the data. And so we have gotten it all together. We're still working on our circle data, but by October 15th, we have to have our plan submitted to TEA, IV through Texas Tech University. And so what they will be looking for to see if our plan has correlation. And what that means is they want to see, are a teacher's T-test scores, which are domains 2 and 3, correlated to what the student growth was in their classroom. For example, if a teacher had very high T-test scores and only approximately, I'm just making this up, but approximately 50% of their students were to meet their growth level, that would not be a correlation. Now, it doesn't go line by line by teacher. It looks at all of our people as a group, but we're looking to see if there's correlation between how our principals score their T-test and how the students score. And we will know for sure in February who will be of our teachers that will be designated, and then in April we will start letting, 2025, which is next spring, we will start letting teachers know if they were designated on the 2023 and 24 data. And in September, when they're now doing what's it called, settle up, she will get the money from the state based on what we paid out in August. Before we go on, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I know several years back, we had changed the way we did the T-test, where like if a teacher like skipped every third year, did we change that back?
You have to, well, there's two reasons that we changed. First of all, we have to change as a commitment to TIA because it's part of it, but when your school goes into school improvement, you are not allowed to skip, do that every 2 years. You're required to do it every year. So everybody is being appraised every year. So if we'll go to the next slide, just a little reminder about who is eligible. Our pre-K and K teachers are eligible using their T-test and their Circle data, which is a beginning, middle, and end nationally validated, reliable screener. Our kindergarten through 3 teachers use Renaissance STAR scores, and we look at how many in the system itself. It looks at how many kids met the expected growth level, and we get a percentage. 4th through 8th grade reading and math teachers, Algebra 1 and English 1 and 2 teachers are based on the actual STAR test and the growth measure there. Now that we are at the stage we are at, we are eligible to look at expansions of our plans and who we can begin to include. For example, we have 2 teachers at the elementary level who teach nothing but science, and so they are not included, or our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers. And the state has come out with some suggestions on what kind of assessments we might could use for those teachers. So we'll be holding, probably not till, I don't think the window opens until January, but having teacher groups come together to talk about, and one thing that, to add to like, what other ways and other things would they like to be included. The main requirement is they have to be a classroom teacher. And so it cannot be anybody that's outside of the classroom teacher.
Does that classroom teacher have to have their certification?
Absolutely. So the next one, I just wanted to show you, Vicki, if you will click on the thing, this TEA has a website in case you're ever bored and want to look, but it is a map. And Vicki, if you will click on Region 13, see it down there? Then go over to the side. This tells you all the schools who around us who have fully designated systems. And if you go down to districts with applied local, Taylor is down there. Keep going, I'll go the other way. Taylor is right there, we're number 26. If you'll click on that, if you click on Taylor ISD, it brings up the map of Taylor. So as an average, this spring, when we designate our teachers, if they designate as recognized, and that can be if they have a national board certification, or if their T-test scores and their student growth scores hit a certain number, we will on average pay them about $6,864. If they're exemplary, it's $13,728, and if it's master, it's $24,881. Now, one thing to be mindful of is they can count on, as a teacher, and we're gonna be talking to teachers when it gets a little closer, on average, to get about 58% of that amount. Districts are required to keep 10% for the implementation of this plan, because it is quite, overwhelming when you start, if you're not like a huge data person and all the different things. And of course, TRS and IRS takes a big chunk. But one of the things that we need to look at, if you'll roll over, our schools should pop up. Each school is a different, let's don't pick on one, so let's go to Taylor High School. If you'll click on it, each school is a different amount. Taylor High School is considered a rural school, and you can see it's also on the number of kids that are there and the economically disadvantaged number of those kids. If you'll roll around and let's find POSMA or MSC. They're marked with the little.
Yeah, zoom in.
Do you see it right there?
Yep.
Click on that one. Oh. see they're right there, the little, yeah. That's not, oh, you do T.H. Johnson. Okay, so T.H. Johnson, you can see if you're a teacher there and recognized, you will earn 7,200 and as a master 2,600. So that's one of the things that's going to be to educate our teachers about. It's not everybody that gets this level makes the same thing. They make different. And so you can look around. Our elementary schools are considered urban, and our middle school and high school are considered rural. I don't, other than I don't know, but that's what the state. Yes, and so this has all of the information that, and we'll show teachers where to look at it. They can actually see where every district in the state of Texas is on this map. And so you can roll around and see what actually is available to me as an educator. And we do have one teacher currently in our district that came to us from another district. It is on there, once they're designated, it is on their teaching certification. And we did give her a check for around $16,000 in August. So it's going to be an exciting time for our teachers in April when we let people know if they received a designation or not. And we'll also be advertising, because if you look, not all of the districts around us are NTIA. And so this will be a way to help teachers, because once you're designated for 5 years. You can always go up, but you can never go down in that 5-year period. And so it's an excellent opportunity for our teachers to receive compensation that is so well deserved.
So tell me a little bit about this test.
What test?
I thought you said they have to take a test.
Oh, no. It's the kids. The kids are the ones that are taking the test.
Okay.
So the component, and the state says, in true state fashion, is like, you can create this plan, but you have to use your appraisal system and you have to use a valid, reliable testing, i.e. STAR. And so we did have a committee, not last year, but the year before, our group, a really nice, pretty good sized group of teachers. And we, as a committee, decided that 60% of the points would come from student growth, whether it's at whatever test it is, and then 40% would come from their T-tests, domains 2 and 3. And when I say it's simply they just add it together. So for T-tests, you can get you can get a 0 through 5 because it's 5 domains, and so they have a possible, I can't remember right off the top of my head, it's an average. So they'll get a 0 through a 5 average based on what number they got there, and then there's a percentage, and
So you're talking about their appraisal,
yes.
and then here's the kids, so
Yes.
there's that. Okay.
Yeah, so adults don't take a
Test
test.
threw me.
No,
I was
no,
like,
no.
okay, wait a
It's
minute.
not like, I remember that, no.
But the appraisal and the test kind of have to.
They come together, so it's a 60%, oh yes, they do have to match. Like, also, for example, I've looked at some of the data, and we have some teachers that did really well, and they're, with their kids, and their T-test is average. And so, we're not to the point where we're still collecting things, so they're looking to match up. If your kids did well, in theory, they should perform well on their T-test. If their kids are doing poorly, in theory, their T-test should reflect that they need improvement.
And so in high school, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
In high school, you're looking at STAR?
So, currently in the high school, yes, the only people that are eligible in the high school for right now
Or English?
is you teach Algebra 1, English 1, and English 2. And so, in the late fall, late January, we're going to be looking at different ways to add more teachers, like our science and social studies, especially at the middle school, maybe a biology. Their TEA has some different, I don't want to say a company, but different people that are producing different assessments. So it's not enough for us we don't have the background to create a reliable, valid nationally, so it's gotta be another measure. But there's more and more that is coming out. So the teaching and learning team is going over some different opportunities that we may try in the spring to be able to add, so we can start including more teachers.
I have two quick questions. The first one, the teacher that got the 16,000 already, did he or she, was they with Taylor last year or they?
No, they were not. They were in a neighboring school district that has already been designated. So if you are a designated teacher, and you have to be there in the year that you receive the designations. Like, I'll just give you an example. We've got teachers on our list last year. I mean, the list that we're fixing to submit that are no longer here. And if they were to become designated, they just lost out because they left. However, if I complete this whole year and I stay, but then at the end of the year, I can go to another school that's in this process and take my designation.
Okay. Thank you. And then the other one, can they win it twice?
They can get it, they will get it every year for 5 years. And then they, assuming that the state is still doing this, at the end of that 5-year period, they can re-up again for another 5.
Okay. It's kind of like incentive for
Yes.
the teacher. Okay. Thank you.
And it does add to their TRS best years.
Thank you.
Yes, they're paying TRS for that.
And so, because the National Merit kids, I'm still just so proud of that. So outside stuff like that doesn't help. I mean, I realize those would be juniors, but I'm just saying if there was something like some person that blew away the SAT or so none of that helps. It's just STAR.
It could be, but so, like, the particular kiddo that the National Merit, like, what teacher would it be?
Well, if it's
And so it has to be more than that. I do know some of our neighboring, like in Brockdale, they modified theirs for like 10% counts as lesson plans and different stuff like that. So there's some modifications like that are small, but the National Merit, like, this is very individual. And so when the state sent us a list of, you said this was your plan. The state sent us the teachers that match that in PEAMS. So it's very important in PEAMS. So they have to have a class roster, and it's based on the entire group of kids that you've got.
So, quick question. What is the difference between fully approved and accepted right now? Because
So we are in the accepted piece because we submitted our plan, and TEA says what the plan that we submitted by saying this is how we were gonna calculate it, this is who we were going to recognize, all of that was approved. Then last year we're in a data capture year. So to be fully approved, you have to go through this piece with Texas Tech. And they are actually gonna run correlation formulas and other different formulas to make sure that our data is aligned. And what I mean aligned is it has to match. Like the STAR, like the T-test has to match the STAR outcomes. And so we were waiting for that. And so once that happens in February, if everything goes well, we will become fully approved. And then you have 5 years where they still monitor, because if your numbers get out of kilter as a district, they might say, you'll need to do something like that. But after 5 years, they're saying that you're done, kind of the district is done with having to resubmit data. But we will have to submit this chart that we're working on now for the next 5 years.
So the other question I had, because I kind of looked at it like, we have actually a higher incentive than Hutto ISD. Is that because they're a bigger district and we're a smaller district? Okay.
Well, it's not, no, it's not. It's based on the number of kids you have at your school, the economically disadvantaged number that you have. So for example, we're all within a relative number, but like Pflugerville ISD or Round Rock ISD, you've got some schools that are much more affluent than others. And so the real goal behind this plan is to get your high performing teachers with your kids that are that need it the most. And so I've kind of heard snippets from teachers in bigger districts like, now that they've got the designation where they came from, I'm gonna start shopping and seeing which school might pay more. And I talked to a couple of them, like, come get ours, because they would come in and get that money. And so, yes, it's based on your district, not as a district, but an individual school.
Add that to your job fair. We did.
Yes.
Oh, buddy.
And then we'll be able to say too, in, by April, what percentage of our group actually did get recognized, or not just recognized, but designated as.
Ain't it?
Yes. All right. Any other questions?
We can skip that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 7, the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the joint meeting with the city on August 16th, 2024, our regular board meeting, August 19th, 2024, tax report, a monthly financial report, approve the SHAC membership, purchasing approval for information. Is there any item that a trustee would like to remove for further discussion? And there are none, I'm open to a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I so moved.
Second.
Motion by Nita, second by Marilyn. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. Item number 8, personnel items for action. Trustees, you had a chance to take a look at the resignations of personnel. Do we need to adjourn into closed session for any discussion? If we do not, I'm open to a motion to approve the resignation of personnel as presented. I so move.
A second.
Motion by Joe, second by Cheryl. All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. Item 9, new business. Consider and approve Taylor ISD and Craftsman Center MOU. Mrs. Beck.
Yes, I just wanted to give a little more detail around the MOU, the accompanying support of the staff member that we received from Craftsman Center. The way that they're going to support the high school has not changed, but the amount of courses has, and so it adjusts the monetary commitment that we have for them, which is why I wanted to give a little more context. So our initial agreement was $27,000 for plumbing 1 and plumbing 2, but because of enrollment, which is a great obstacle to have, we've had to separate out the 2 courses so that we can adjust and account for the new enrolled students. And so that did adjust the monetary commitment that we have with the center, just so that we can continue to build that pathway and hopefully make it a standalone pathway that is ours in the future.
Good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Seeing that there are none, I'm open to a motion to approve the Taylor ISD and Craftsman Center MOU as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Anita, second by Shorty. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed, do the same. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. Next on the agenda is the calendar, September 27th through 29th, Tussa Tasby Convention, San Antonio. October 4th, 2024, Taylor ISD Homecoming. October 21st, 2024, our regular board meeting. At 6:45 p.m., we must have a public hearing scheduled that day. All right. Are there any suggestions for future items, food for thought? Yeah, we're just moving right along. Yes,
You're doing great.
sir. All right, at this time, closed session as determined by the Board of Trustees, the board may recess into closed session for purposes permitted by Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Building Code, Section 551.001, to discuss items related to personnel, Texas Government Code, Section 551.074. Any action will be taken in open session. We adjourn open session at 8:17 p.m. It'll take about 10 minutes so you can go to the bathroom.